Hey YouTube, welcome back to Mike's Mini Motors. So in this episode we're going to be back on the snow bike mini bike build and hopefully get to the point where we can test drive this thing. Since the last video I did go ahead and get the suspension put on here. I was out here last weekend kind of tinkering away and kind of just got carried away with it and didn't have the camera rolling, so I'll get you guys a closer look so you can see what I've done. But the other thing is I did pick up some spring-loaded chain tensioners that I'm going to try to come up with something to try to work with that top chain just because it's such a long length with no... Yeah, it's just really long. That and then hopefully the brakes so that I can stop. And I also have, actually sitting right here in front of the camera, the ski front end down. So if we get to the point where this is able to be tested, I can throw that on the front end also and give her a rip. So let me grab the camera, get you a closer look so you can see the suspension, and then we'll go from there. So I'll give you a quick rundown of what I've done with the suspension already. So I started with the lower mount. I measured here, and on both shocks it was about a 3/4 inch opening. So I took a piece of my 3/4 inch square tube, notched it, and made it just so that's my little mounts there for the bottom. And then up top I had to fabricate this whole bracket here because, like I said in the other video, or at least I believe I said it, I'm trying to make this as bolt-on as possible, so I'm trying to not modify the stock frame. That way I can put the wheel back on, so if I want to ride it in the summertime, or if I even want to take this here and swap it onto my other mini bike because it's the same frame. So this took a little more modification, or excuse me, fabrication up here to make something that can bolt in. So I'll get the camera a little closer and give you guys a quick little overview of that. Alright, so here you can see that bracket a little bit better from the top view. So originally, like I said, I made a bar that just came across here that could then, when the forces of the shock are pushing up, it's going to push into the frame. And so at first I was thinking, oh, these little U-bolts aren't going to be enough to hold that potentially. But then I realized, well, the forces are all going this way, so it's just locating it essentially, and then the bar is taking all the forces. So I made the tabs here and get them welded on both sides. And then, but since the tabs are coming out this way, that makes this bar want to pivot like that from the way the shocks are pushing it. So I added this bar here with another U-bolt just to locate it, so that way it can't rock also. Alright, so that's pretty much all I really did off camera. So the suspension's good for now. I did one thing also, I lowered the lift down and I did sit on it and tried to bounce a bit. And it held my weight just fine. It was pretty stiff, but it is what it is for just using shocks and parts that I had just laying around. So now I'm going to move on to the chain. So I'll show you guys what I currently have set up for now. And then I got these spring-loaded chain tensioners off of Amazon that I'm going to try to figure out something on there for the final pieces. Alright, so here's the chain setup I have so far. There's only 3 components in it right now. There's the clutch up front, the stock tensioner here, and then the rear sprocket. And if I were to build this from scratch, what I would have done is put a jack shaft here to help eliminate the huge long lengths of chain. But again, it's because I'm trying to do the bolt-in thing. I'm this configuration for now. But yeah, so I gotta just kind of deal with this really long length here, you see. But one thing is, like on the stock tensioner here, normally the chain rides on the top side of it because it just comes right down here to the sprocket on the rear wheel. But on this one, coming over top of it, it actually put the chain a lot closer to the axle here than I liked. It was going to rub probably if you hit a bump. So I ride on the bottom side and it cleared that clearance issue. But I don't think it's going to actually really do much as a tensioner, more of a chain guide. So that's another reason why I picked up these spring-loaded tensioners, is so that I can put one on the top side here to help bring this down, because this is actually fairly close to the frame here. So wanted to keep it from rubbing on there, but then also since it's spring-loaded and since I don't have a jack shaft and my pulley's way back here, when this suspension moves, the chain tension is going to change. And so that's where the spring-loaded tensioner here will compensate in those times. So I'm going to go ahead and unpackage these tensioners and just fiddle around with it and see what I can come up with, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here is my chain setup I came up with. I end up adding two things. I added here where there was a tab already for the stock chain guard. I added a roller. The tensioners I got came with extra rollers, so I put one here just as like an idler. And then put right here the spring-loaded tensioner. So I'll get you a little bit closer look just so you guys can see what we got going on there. And yeah. So with the camera at this angle, you can see this a little bit better. You can see just up here is just that idler roller here. And then here's the tensioner. And I can push it all the way down if I have to. But we've got plenty of play. And then this thing, without the chain on it, will come all the way up and hit the frame. So it's got plenty of tension on it right now. And it seems to be all right. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna jack up the rear end a little bit so the track's not on the ground. And we're gonna start this thing up and make sure the track runs. Alright, so we got the track rolling, which is a huge accomplishment. So I think I only have two things left to be able to actually go test drive this thing. First off, which I'm going to address is, right now I just have some baling wire, or whatever you want to call this, hooked up to the track, because since it's just the axle is the only thing attaching it, this would want to spin as we were driving it. So I need to make some kind of tab here that's going to just hold this in place so that the track itself doesn't try to rotate, which I'll get to first. And then next, and the last thing I believe is the brakes. Again, like this rotor here is just floating in here right now. And I believe the brake is gonna have to go back in this area here, just because of spacing, because of how large it is. But when I was trying to test it earlier, this part of the bracket on the track is in the way. And so I'm going to have to cut that down to even get it to possibly fit in here. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on getting this here done so that the track doesn't rotate. And then we'll move on to the brakes. So here's what I came up with to keep the track from rotating all the way around. It was just, I had a 1-inch piece of square tube that I already had a notch in it and everything. So I just used that. And then when I was making these tabs up here for the upper shock mounts, I had some of that stock left over, so I just used it right here. And now it's off the ground right now. It's solid, so should be good there. So now last thing I got to do is the brakes. But like I said, get the caliper in here. It's hitting this bracket here, and so I'm gonna have to take that off. I'll just cut it off top and bottom, and then I'll get to trying to fab this in here somehow. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it, but figure something out. All right, so I stopped for a moment. I was going to give you guys a little update on where I'm at with the brakes. I had to do quite a bit of modification to both the brakes and the mount. So this mount on the caliper here, let's see if you can see it, originally had that on it. But I don't know if maybe the brake rotor hub thing I picked out wasn't the same as what was on an MB200 mini bike, but yeah, so I had to modify it. So I had to cut this off because this tab was actually here and would hit the screws, so that was the no-go. So what I ended up doing is cutting it down and just relocating the hole here, and then also had to take the bracket and modify it quite a bit. I cut this off the end of it and then moved the new hole up here, and then just cut this off just because otherwise it's sticking way out over here. But with that on there, I do have to put a washer on this hole, because let's see if you can see. See, this one had one welded on and the other one did too. So I just found a lock washer. Here it is. A lock washer that's about the same thickness as that, and so I'll just put it in between here, and that way it's flush. So let me get this screwed on here real quick. Okay, so there's the bracket on the caliper and everything. Come on, focus. Yeah. Anyways, so this just goes up here onto the brake rotor, and then I've scribed lines over here so I know where to line this up at. So it's going to sit about like that, and then again this rotor's still just mocked up in here, so you can see that it's goes through there. So now I'm going to start getting this stuff all tack welded on, then I can run the handle with the line back here and we'll test our brakes. So one thing I decided to do before running the brake line is I'm going to go ahead and put this ski front end on the front here, because I'm going to undo all the brakes and everything to swap the handlebars over, so kill two birds with one stone. So I'll have laps get this on there, and then I'll get the brake line routed. So here you can see the brake configuration I came up with. Got the caliper here mounted using that bracket that I got from Go Power Sports that was made for this caliper, like I showed you guys. But the nice thing is, because of the shape of it, it curves down like this. I was able to tack it in up here and to this bar, so it's just, especially since it's the brake and there's gonna be a lot of forces on it, just a little beefier. One nice thing too is this brake cable or line came with this little plastic or rubber like sleeve almost. So I actually zip tied it right here to this little stock mount, and for the factory brakes, and then that actually, I didn't tighten it too much so that it can actually slide through there, and then kept and bunched up my slack here. As you can see, there's not a whole lot, but this isn't going to move a lot, so I don't need too much. And so that will help if there's much movement in the swing arm, that will compensate for that. And as you can see, like right now I can move the track by hand, but if I reach up and hit the brake, yeah, nothing. So, sweet, brakes are done. Well, with all that, we now have a mini bike snow bike. It's complete. The chain and everything works, drives this here, or excuse me, drives the track. The brakes work, suspension, stiff, so it kind of works, but, and then I went ahead and got the ski front end on there. So, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to touch up a couple of these pieces that are tack welded on, just so they're a little stronger, and then it's going to be test riding time. Hopefully, of course, right when I get done with it, like today it was like 40 degrees outside, so the snow's going to be wet and heavy again, but I'll just have to make do. So let's get this thing out in the snow. actually, that alone, I'm stoked about, just because this is the biggest fabrication project I've taken on so far. And besides the tack welds breaking on the mount here that keeps the track from moving up and down, it worked out great. The snow wasn't the best. It was all icy and stuff like that, but beggars can't be choosers at this time, and so at least I got to give it a test drive, and it worked. So what I got next to do is I'll have to tear it all back down and fully weld it, just so it actually stay together and this won't happen. And then I'm going to paint it so it doesn't rust. Probably just, at least for now, go black just so it matches the current bike, but I think this guy's going to end up getting a different color scheme later on down the road, and this might change. So, but anyways, that's it. The mini bike snow bike is now running. It works. I'm stoked about it, and yeah, I can't wait to see how it looks fully finished up, you know, painted and everything. So if you guys want to see that in future videos, go ahead and subscribe. And if you like this project, like the video, and leave me a comment if you want. And with that one, I'll catch you guys in the next video. I punched the lift, or the bender.